I'm going to share some things with you guys today that have profoundly changed my life. And this is stuff that, my gosh, I wish people taught me when I was 10 or 15 or, my gosh, even 20 or even 30. And it took me, I'm 47 years old now, it took me until my late 30s to learn some of this stuff. And the way that I learned it was the hard way, by screwing everything up and having a lot of pain and working many, many hours every single week and committing my life to business and, not doing a whole lot of fun stuff. And life kind of sucked. And I would prefer it. I don't know if you guys would prefer it this way, but I would prefer maybe if you learned from some of my mistakes so you don't have to do things this way. You guys up for that? Yes? Real loud. Yes or no? Yes? Yeah. All right. So I want to ask you guys a question to start out with. And if you don't mind, I know exercises with other people is always weird, but I'm going to start off with a little weirdness because there's a point to this. I would like for you to get together with one other person real quick, just find one person, maybe next to you or anywhere else. And I want to ask the question, I want you to define this with each other. What does this word freedom mean to you? What does it mean to you? And you guys nailed it with what you said. You almost identically said what I believe the definition is. But it's life on your terms. Say it with me real quick. Life on your terms. And again, by the way, I know when I ask you to do this stuff, it sounds ridiculous. It's so that you get it into your head and you remember it. When you remember that and you understand this thing called vision, which I'm going to talk about this afternoon quite a bit, you get to design the life you want the way you want it and live it the way you want it. And I'm going to tell you right now, when I speak, I oftentimes ask adult audiences the question, okay, if that's the definition of freedom, how many people do you know, with all your Facebook friends, all the people on your phone, all the people that you work with, maybe the people in your company, how many people do you know personally, not people that you think you know what their life looks like because you see them on social media, because that ain't always true. How many people do you know personally that are living life and have ultimate freedom in all areas of their life? They have financial freedom. They have all the money they can spend on anything they want. That have all the freedom with their calendar and their time. They get to do what they want when they want to do it. And guess how adults respond? I say, how many of you can think of 3 or more people in your whole life that have freedom? Guess what percentage of a room you think people can come up with? 3 people or more. What percentage? Give me some guesses. 0, 1%, 0, 50. It's on average 2 to 3% of an audience can think of 3 people that they know that are free. This is insane. We're supposed to be living in the freest country on earth, and yet maybe 2% of people can only think of 3 people. You want to know what one of the worst days of my life was? Worst day of my life. I made $103,000 in one day. $103,000. Now, how many of you would love to make $103,000 in a day? Sounds pretty good, right? Why is it the worst day of my life? Because it was the day that I realized I just did, at the time, that was more money than I had ever made. I bought a house, I put a house under contract, I flipped it the same day. I owned this house for 5 minutes. I did no work to it. It was awesome. Went to the title company, closed the deal. I literally got $103,000 wired into my bank account, ready to spend today. Should have been the greatest day ever. I went home and I cried. And I'll never forget, this was before we had kids, my wife said, "What is going on with you?" Because we used to, every time we used to sell a house, I would come home and we would go celebrate. We'd go have dinner that night, or we would do something to celebrate. We were pretty good about that. But this day I was like, I don't want to go anywhere. I'm sitting on my front porch. It's a gorgeous day like today. And I'm bawling. And she's like, what happened? We didn't close the deal? And I said, no, we closed it just fine. You ever been in a bad mood and you snap at somebody and you're like, what am I, nuts? So this way I'm snapping at her. I don't know why I'm snappy. And she goes, well, what happened? So we closed it? And I go, yes. And she goes, we didn't make as much as you thought. And I said, no, we made $103,000. And she goes, okay, are you psycho? What's going on with you? Are you mental? And we just made $103,000. You're in a bad mood? And I said, yes. And she goes, why? And I said, 3 months. She goes, what do you mean? I said, I just did the biggest deal of my life. That's more money than I used to make in a year, and I just bought 3 months of freedom. I thought that if I made $103,000, I'd be set for a long time. 3 months, that's all I got. I have to do another deal in 3 months, or all that $103,000 is gone. Because I built the business that way. And I cried like an idiot, you know. And I'll never forget this. My wife said to me, what a far cry from where we were 4 years ago. You remember this? And I said, what are you talking about? And she said, 4 years earlier, we had started our business. We were totally broke. She said, 4 years ago, do you remember us being in the basement? We were on our hands and knees. We were praying to God, God, please let us make $4,000 or $5,000 and we'll be set. That's all we need. We'll be set for a long time. All we need is $4,000 or $5,000 and we'll be set. God, please bless us with $4,000 or $5,000. And now you're pissed off because you made $103,000? Who are you? I said, I don't know. How did I get here? And that's when we said, we got to redesign everything. We're not doing the things the way that people just told us we should do it. I'm not going to have the overhead that everybody says you have to have in business. I'm not going to have all the debt that everybody says you're supposed to have in life, house payment, car payment. And I had to take a hard look at where I was in life. At that point, I owed $1.1 million on stuff, business stuff, our house, cars, all this stuff. And by the way, this was 4 years into business where in St. Louis, Missouri, where I live, people in clubs like this, we used to go to these real estate clubs, people looked up to me and they thought I was the guy who had it made because all they saw was that I was flipping 80 houses a year. They thought I was the model. I was starting to get asked to speak about building an awesome business, and I don't even have one. But it sure looks like I do. I'm a fraud and I'm a fake. And I know it and nobody else does. I'm not free at all. I've never done the work.